In this video, we're going to talk through a scenario where it's not just you, right? Many employees are globally getting fired, dealing with very difficult situations in their career. And again, at the end of the day, the goal is to get rich and get off the grid. Now, people think getting off the grid means going to buy a house in the middle of nowhere and buying some land, growing their own food. But there's all sorts of ways you can get off the grid, essentially be less dependent on one income source. It could be having multiple jobs, multiple clients, income sources from your job, rental properties, whatever that would be. But it's very difficult when your entire life depends on one income source, which is your main job. And that's why you've got to be able to navigate through that, which we're going to cover through in a few clips. Now, just as a quick intro, if you're new to the channel, my name's Economics Ethan. I have over 10 years experience at major investment banks, sales and trading roles, things like that, Goldman, Morgan Stanley and HSBC. And I've done many successful job applications at other top investment banks like JP top companies like Deloitte, Arrowgrass, Hedge Funds, private equity firms, and many other top companies. And I help my clients across a variety of industries, finance, tech, and engineering, law, accounting, anything you can imagine, to help them secure promotions faster and land their dream careers. And I do that through coaching programs and also have a course which is linked in description to help you deal with office politics. And lastly, another link in description is mastering the whole aspect of office politics, landing your dream role and getting promotions through free twice a week emails I'll send to your email mailbox. So just sign up for that, link in description if you want to get started with that. Let's go back to this now. Let's hear what she has to say here.
Corporate Gen Xers, you better buckle up. It's going to get ugly here pretty quick. Think about this. March was the third most layoffs in history. And that's when businesses were doing well and performing financially, right? This is mass layoffs even after strong financial quarters. Now with the utter chaos in the stock market and what these companies, do you think they're going to sit still? Absolutely not. They're going to ramp up taking cost out of business. And again, who's going to be the brunt of it? Gen Xers. Because even though you have the most experience, wisdom, etc., they don't care. You're also going to be the most expensive. So if you thought you were going to be able to ride this out, things just took a turn and it's going to accelerate. There's just no doubt about it. Like I said, just look at the last 12 months where a lot of these companies were financially performing well and taking cost, basically people out of the business. It's only going to ramp up. So if you haven't made your plan B, I would highly encourage you to think about that now. Again.
So I just want to cover this in a bit of detail. Now, a lot of jobs that are being lost right now are not just people at more junior ends. There could be people who are in Gen X, right, which he's mentioning here, right, which would be people who are in the 45 to 6-year-old age bracket. They are people that companies don't have a problem giving them a redundancy or a layoff because they have a certain amount of salary that they could pay, give them a few months pay, or an early retirement and push them in terms of early retirement or almost permanent unemployment, because it's very difficult when people are over 45 to 60 type of range to get a new job. It's very unlikely they're going to get a new job, and if they do, they might have to make a major downgrade in their salary that they're putting up with, in their income sources, things like that, right? So it's easy to give them some kind of redundancy retirement package, which I've seen including in government roles, right, where someone's closer to retirement age in their 60s, and the governments typically, you see this with Doge and other cuts, not just in the US, but in the UK government too, where someone might be in their later years and the government will just come up with a specific number. I've been working here this many years. We'll give you a massive layoff package, massive redundancy package, and then they're pushed to leave, right? Also in corporations, many companies want to get rid of the older managers, not just because it's due to age, because particularly in the finance industry, but elsewhere, many of these people were on much higher salaries, pre-2008 salaries, before the GFC, the global financial crisis. And what I mean by that is they were earning very high salaries before everyone's salaries got suppressed through everything that's happened in recent years with the high rates of inflation, basically compression of wages that occurred post 2008, right, when we had that global financial crisis. So there's many managing directors, for example, in finance who are older. They're on a very high salary package, given they've been working those roles since 2008 or before. And what they can do now is basically fire these people and hire more junior employees, slightly younger, maybe in their late 30s, and give them a lower salary. So these are the type of ways that companies can get cheaper, younger employees and also remove many layers of middle management, right? And he's mentioning here government efficiency cuts, Doge in the US. There's lack of funding because there's high interest rates and companies aren't borrowing to invest and grow their company. Another thing to note here is that people are getting layoffs and it has nothing to do with their performance. It's just companies just wants to contract instead of grow, right? Now, what's the plan B, right? Because he's mentioning a plan B here. It could be finding another job, pivoting your career. Even if you have a salary cut to find your next job, you could be pivoting to other avenues of income source. Some people, it could be teaching. Maybe if you have a business background, you can maybe go into teaching at university and things like that. Of course, you have a pay cut there, but at least you're earning an income. You're not just in permanent long-term unemployment. The truth is there's less options when you get older, and I'm going to cover this for you in many of my videos. I'm sure most of my viewers are in their 20s and their 30s, and some people in 40s and older, but I would say past 40, it gets much more difficult to get jobs because there will be some bias against you based on your age, and there's less and less roles at those higher levels with those levels of experience. So many people are going to struggle in a sense. It's best for you to be able to plan ahead when you're Gen Zs and millennials now, if you're in your 20s and your 30s, to plan ahead financially, because you could be in your 40s and be facing some sense of long-term unemployment or have to massively shift your career, right? You're not going to live like previous generations, the boomers, where they had a middle-class safe job until they hit their 70s, right? That's very rare. It's going to become increasingly rare as the years go on. Next up, we're going to listen to a woman share her scenario about dealing with layoffs.
Big life update. I was just laid off today from my job and I have so many conflicting feelings about it. I just feel like the way that these companies do layoffs sometimes and let people go, it really takes away that human aspect. And I'm in a position now where this is not my first layoff. The first time it happened to me, I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was scared. And this time around, I feel a lot more prepared. I feel like I did a lot of saving because I knew, and I know now this is just like the nature of the game. The timing is crazy. I don't know if it's the universe working in my favor. I don't know if there's something that I'm meant to be doing that is gonna come to fruition now. I think I'm relieved because I knew going into this specific job at this specific company that this was not gonna be the ideal for me. I just feel like I'm at this really weird spot in my life where the fact that this brings me a little bit of relief and a little bit of comfort and some excitement for what's next, I think really allows me to be in a space now where I can reevaluate, I can take my time, and I can just take this time right now to focus on me, focus on my health, focus on doing the things that I want to do right now. I don't know, I feel like I'm just ranting right now, but anybody who's been through layoffs can relate to the mix of emotions that comes with it. I'm just gonna take it day by day and see where the universe leads me next.
So this is a reality that people have to deal with, is ABA, always be applying. Now, I understand you can't always literally be applying for new jobs, particularly if you just started one. Just bear in mind that always being aware of other opportunities out there is your best option, right? You don't want to be stuck in a job and then not be looking for another job and then you're facing a layoff. At least if you have general regular contact with a couple recruiters, or you have some connections at other companies that might be able to help you, this will really put you in a better position. Sometimes people leave a job and they happen in this scenario, right, where she's dealing with a layoff and also she's interviewing for another company, and both of them happen at the same time, where she loses her job and the interview doesn't work out, right? So her future opportunities failed and her current opportunities just gone down the drain. So this is the thing, you should do your best to feel prepared to deal with instability. Layoffs take a lot of wind out of you, particularly if they happen back to back, or you're dealing with multiple difficult scenarios, not just a job loss but other instances. The thing is, your current job is not your end all be all, right? More people realize it than not, that their job is something they shouldn't get attached to, right? You can't have your personal identity linked to it. Many companies see you as disposable and you should view them the same way. And what's interesting here is her instant sense of relief after leaving this job or being announced that she has a layoff, right? And this is something people don't talk about layoffs, is the instant sense of relief, comfort or excitement, because you feel like at least you don't have the day-to-day pressure of doing that job. And it's good to enjoy that moment, at least for a temporary time, couple days, couple weeks, because you can focus on self-sufficiency, reorientate your life, and realize that many good things in life that are free, just having your own free time to yourself. So that's really a positive mindset to have to these type of issues.
I got let go from my job as part of organizational shifts and return to office. As you guys know, I have been a remote employee for the past 5 years, really since the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm crying not because I'm sad that I got let go. Obviously, the instability of losing an income always sucks. What sucks most about being let go is somebody taking control out of your hands. I always preach internally and here at home that we have got to be the people in the driving seat of our futures, of our careers. And when a company takes that control out of your hands, it sucks, because all of a sudden the plan that you had, the roadmap that you were on board for, is gone. Now you've got to start over. And this is why you've always got to have a plan B, a plan C, and most importantly, an emergency fund. I am incredibly upset and frustrated. There have been several shifts in the company in this last couple of months that I just knew the writing was on the wall, and I knew my time was coming. But the fact that we have an emergency fund, because ultimately that is what matters at the end of the day, is that we have money to pay our mortgage, to pay for our daycare. We have that as a fallback, and I can take time, maybe a week, to just collect my thoughts and put together a strategy for job hunting. Always be prepared for the unexpected, because ultimately companies will always put themselves first. And as much as you want to believe that you're part of the family, you like the people you work with, it's a business transaction. It's a business contract, and you've got to handle it as such. But please know that you are more than your job. You are more than what you do. Have a plan, have an emergency fund. Do not spend more than you need to. Live below your means. We are in strange times. That isn't beside me losing the job, just general messaging. Treat yourself as a business and always be looking for better opportunities, because companies would do the same.
And this is true, right? This is the instability I keep talking about, how you need more control over your life, and you should seek to have more control over your life, more freedom, rather than just whichever high status job you think you can get, where regardless of how stable it is or not, right? Many people these days, Gen Z and millennials in particular, and even people I would say in their early 40s, you're dealing with a lot of instability, right? Instability in your careers, your lives, your personal lives sometimes, companies taking control of every aspect of your life, right? And again, I think in terms of the emergency fund, people typically say, oh, you should have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. Some say 6 to 12 months. I would say 12 to 24 months, in my opinion, as much as you can, because you could be dealing with a longer term unemployment time frame. Companies tend to put themselves first, right? It says it's a business transaction. Most relationships, or all relationships these days, are transactional relationships, not only between you and the company, between men and women in many cases, between even friends, right? And the transaction isn't always money related. It could be status related. You could benefit from working for a company, even if they're not paying you well, if they're a brand name company, if they're Google, if they're Goldman Sachs. That having that on your resume will give you a massive salary increase for your next role after that, even though if they're not paying you well for your particular role. This is the type of thing. There's a transaction there for status, not just money, right? Many friends and family you might think have your back, but they might be gossiping about you. They might be using you to give them investment advice or guiding their career indirectly, and then they mock you, or they take cheap shots at you when it's convenient for you, or when they feel they can't use you. This is what I mean. Unfortunately, we don't have close-knit connections in the same way we did. Of course, you have some close friends, people you can trust, but a lot of people, you have to be quite wary of how they're using you and how companies are using you in many cases. So it's quite important to protect yourself in these instances. You're a one-person business. You should carry yourself with self-respect and dignity and confidence, and have personal branding and self-employment as your long-term goals. Or at least if you're working for companies, see yourself as a one-person brand that you have flexibility to move elsewhere if needed. And just before we move to this article, I want to focus on one lesson from my course that I have, link in description. And the whole thing you need to do is show strength instead of seeking approval. You lead with patient power and assertive clarity. You avoid approval-seeking softness. Weakness usually hides behind the mask of virtue, right? So what I mean by that is people think, oh, if they be overly passive and submissive at work or in their industry, that's going to be valued. Oh, you're a good worker bee, right? But in the end, people start walking all over you, and companies walk all over you, right? I've dealt with this in business outside of work. I've dealt with this at work, and it's just, you just got to be confident. For lack of a better term, don't give a F mentality. It doesn't mean you come across as arrogant or you don't care about your work. You just don't let people walk all over you, and you stand up for yourself. That's something I'd highly recommend, because what you're going to see as the dysfunction continues, not only with more layoffs and more inflation, cost of living breakdown, relationship breakdown, things like that. You're going to have more workplace incivility, which means conflict in the workplace and people behaving unprofessional in the workplace. And why is this occurring? What's going on? See, we have here that more people are being less civilized and unprofessional at work is because there's RTO, return to the office, and some people don't want to return to the office. There's more layoffs, people have more workplace anxiety, people have less patience for other people. Some people prefer to work at home and don't like the workplace environment. So you can look through this, right? You can see the caption of this image. Tension in the workplace is up nearly 20%, partly due to unpopular policies like RTO mandates and massive layoffs. So this is a reality for people to be dealing with, right? In terms of tense workplace environments, 20% of dysfunction seems to be occurring there, right? In terms of people don't want to go back to work. People are worried that they might lose their job. People don't want to take responsibility if something goes wrong because they could be put up for a layoff, things like that. And then it mentions here shaming, gaslighting, and excessive micromanaging. What does this exactly mean, right? Shaming could be your manager saying, I don't know how you still haven't figured out this task. Even the interns get it faster than you. That's the type of unnecessary shaming and insults you have to deal with. Gaslighting. A manager might say, we never agreed on that deadline. Maybe you misunderstood. I would have never said that. That's another case where you agreed something with your manager and now he's saying, no, we didn't agree that. That's why it's important to get things in writing. Excessive micromanaging. A manager says, send me every update, copy me on every email, and don't make any decisions without my sign off. And this is how they can gaslight you, shame you, micromanage you, control every little thing you do, and it makes you quite unhappy at work. And these are the type of scenarios you have to deal with. And it says here, because of reduced productivity and absenteeism, incivility costs it costs employers over 2 billion each day, right? Or over 7 billion annually, right? So I don't know how they're running up these statistics. Sounds a little bit ridiculous. 700 billion annually, right? It just sounds a bit ridiculous. I don't know how they pull these statistics, but the whole point is there is a productivity cost to having emotional issues, right? To having, life or co-workers being difficult with you. It does impact work output. And this is something people are increasingly having to deal with these unstable work environments. Here it says, employers with return to office mandates experienced a 63% increase in incivility compared to those without. Companies that initiate layoffs or mass terminations see a 67% rise on inappropriate behavior, right? So let's just say 60% increase of unprofessional behavior or dysfunctional behavior in the workplace when employees are forced to return to the office or there's mass layoffs because people are on edge. They're anxious about losing their job. There's some people who really don't see the point, rightfully so, of why they have to be in the office when they can do the exact same thing working from home. So I understand why there's dysfunction in there. Then it says changes to workers' daily routine bring stress and could cause for greater outbursts, emotional outbursts, verbal outbursts, right? People can get comfortable working from home and still do good quality work, but they're forced into the office unnecessarily, right? I tend to notice here, like people are because they can be at work, working from, and they can avoid the expensive travel to work, whether it's to a car where people have road rage or the tension or the misery you see on some of the subways and transport trains that people have to take into the office. It just seems unnecessary. People realize how pointless it is being in the office when they can work from home. In the first quarter of 2025, over 200 million instances of office hostilities occurred in American workplaces each day. Now, again, bit of a ridiculous statistic. I don't know how they're tracking 200 million instances of office hostility, but I think that just generally shows there is a general level of people who are unhappy at work, and it's kind of playing out in ways. Next up, it says nearly 3 in 4, so 75% of employers, 75% of being low mood in the office due to politics and current events. Roughly an equal number of workers are desperately desiring mental health resources to cope with the global political turmoil, which is kind of a bit ridiculous, a bit of a psyop. I would say either side of the political spectrum, they're working for higher powers you never see, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, and they control and masses, and they want to distract you from your personal success. Now, we all get dragged into political to a certain extent, maybe you want more government benefits for people who are out of whatever that would be. But at the end of the day, politics and politicians, they're not looking out for our best interest. It's one level above mindless entertainment, I would say, right? It's important, it's interesting to do things, but you don't have power over them. And at the end of the day, they're not really going to help you too much. So it's important to kind of take control of your own life. But people at work are kind of dragged into these type of difficult situations where you're told at work you have to agree with a woke ideology, you have to agree with liberalism or feminism or BLM or the rainbow flag community or the climate agenda, and it becomes ridiculous after a point. You have to hate Trump, you have to hate Brexit, and it has this little quote here: however, the behavior of managers can make or break when it comes to supporting their employees during times of instability. Now, it comes back to that phrase, the workplace is like daycare for adults. Now, why should the manager be responsible for emotional outbursts from their employees? I understand people are stressed, but it creates this weird environment. Everything has been dumped in the work environment, the politics, the people's unhappiness about their personal life. All these things get dumped at work, which add to the already existing pressure of layoffs and things like that, which are real economic issues. And what's annoying is that people are going to work to do their job, and then they have to agree with a political opinion, like I say, the woke, whatever it would be, to keep their job. I remember in 2016, working for a major investment bank I won't name, on department calls, town halls, we'd have managing directors basically telling us, American managing directors, telling employees in the office, including myself and people who are in London, UK citizens, things like that, about how Brexit would be such a bad idea, and we really hope people don't vote for Brexit because it'd be so terrible. And I remember sitting through these finance calls where we're meant to be discussing finance matters or what's relevant to the investment bank, but they were going on these long political tirades about how Brexit is bad and divisive and Trump is bad. You just have to listen to these typical whinging, and even on the election days on the trading floor or the voting days for Brexit, you'd have to deal with constant liberal feminist outrage, some female co-workers crying because Brexit got voted in and they don't like Trump or whatever. It just became ridiculous after a point. It's like, do I constantly have to play along with this? And this is what I mean about incivility. I think people in general are just fed up of the whole thing. They just want to go to work and work, or work from home and do work and get paid, because it is a transactional relationship, as we covered before. But they can't do it. They're pushed into political issues. They have to be in the office when they want to work from home. They're dealing with layoffs and they're getting fired even though they've done nothing wrong. So these are the type of difficult scenarios to deal with. And if you're facing some of these, this is how I can help. I offer 2 coaching programs to help you secure promotion: the Career Accelerator program, the Career Booster program, where I'll help you land your dream career, right? These are the 2 ways I can help. And lastly, I can help you master office politics in terms of a code course, which there is a link in the description to all these things. So let me know how you feel personally in terms of the job market right now. Do you have a long-term plan for your financial stability? Be interesting to hear. Let me know in the comments. 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.